Hello, good day to you all. So, I wanted to go on this live stream today to talk about leadership. It's something that I've cared about for a long time, but I think now that I'm expecting a boy with Michelle in June, it's becoming even more important to me because obviously being a father is about leadership. And I see such a desperate plight in the world of leadership. There's so much corruption. There is so much lack of integrity. There's so much deception. Like our political leaders, our corporate leaders, they don't seem to have a bone of honesty in their bodies anymore. And it's something that I cannot stand by and just like accept that, because it's not the kind of world that I want my son to grow up in. I don't want any children to grow up in that kind of a world. And so I really want to focus in a little bit on 7 traits of a strong leader today: a high integrity leader, an evolutionary leader. And I take this information, these reflections, from about a decade of working with men in initiatory trainings like Reclaiming the Throne, and just seeing the kinds of games that we play with ourselves. The thing that I realized quite early on is that it's very hard for the average dude, but also for the average woman, to be fully transparent to himself and to the world, to be fully telling the truth. And thus it becomes easy to let myself off the hook, because I can tell myself a lie in a moment of great challenge or intensity and run away from the very evolutionary edge that I needed to cross to move into the next chapter of my life. And this is something that has been uh, something, yeah, I've struggled with that a bit. I've struggled with that a bit because it's been so deeply wired into my being from early on in life that like lies are painful. When I was a child, whenever somebody lied around me, there's something that happened inside of my system that kind of cringed. And and ever since, anyone lying to themselves or to others, I just felt a similar kind of, mm, it's a lack of rightness with lies. And I think for a good reason. None of us should have rightness with lies, right? So this kind of leader, this strong leader that we're going to be talking about today, he certainly needs to be aligned with truth. And let's dive in here. If you're in Europe now, you should probably be focusing on your work. And if you are in Americas now, you should probably be focusing on sleep. So maybe you will be watching this as a recording, and that's just fine. I think this message will certainly be relevant for a long time. So the first uh, real pillar of a strong leader is vision. And this shouldn't come as a surprise, because you need to have some level of idea of where you're going, what kind of problem you're solving, what better future you're leading people into. Like a vision is an intrinsic feature of leadership, because leadership is to guide into something that is different to the status quo, preferably better. But of course, there are many crooked leaders that are leading into something that's way worse. And this kind of vision requires a level of self inquiry, self reflection, and requires that there's enough space in my life that I get to be with myself and to let the distractions and the obsessions of being in a mad world settle. And this is not easy anymore, but it's absolutely crucial, because it's as all that settles and who I am starts to shine forth, that's when the vision comes, right? You're in the presence of a world that has certain things that aren't working, and you're also in the presence of something that is coming up from deep inside. And um and that thing that is coming up from this internal place, the self, the divine self even, that is the answer to the world's plight. And so this is this is the first real important trait of a strong leader. And the second one is charisma. And there are a lot of unseemly people who are charismatic, but you cannot be a strong leader without having some level of charisma. You just can't. And it's because if you're going to recruit somebody to the vision, you need to have a level of magnetism that make people be drawn towards you. Like, and if you have that vision, and you may be somebody who has that vision, or you may not, but it can be this sense of, okay, I need to get it out there, but I don't know how, and that will require some level of charisma, some level of personal magnetism. There's something that is radiating forth from deep inside of you. Often this comes from your prior visitations of deep, soulful places inside. It could have been a dark night of the soul, some kind of underworld journey. Maybe you've had a struggle, maybe you almost died, and in a moment on your deathbed, or you thought you were going to die, all of these important things, they just flashed through, and you realized what was important. And from that place of realizing what's important, you develop a kind of personal magnetism, because you're connected to some kind of source deep inside, right? So charisma is absolutely crucial as well. uh, Communication skills. Now you have a vision, and it needs to get out there. You have a level of personal magnetism, but you also need to know how to present all of this with words, written words, spoken words, words from a stage, words in one-to-one, words in a webinar, seminar, television, documentary, whatever. So this tends to, like, just the personal anecdote. I spent a lot of time, many years, spreading the Reclaiming the Throne work in the world. Male initiation, my message was clear. It was easy to get it out there. But then something happens throughout this COVID era that starts to recalibrate me on the inside, so that I have to change, because there are some things that aren't working for me anymore. And as I change, I come out on the other side. And yes, maybe a vision is emerging. Maybe there is some kind of charisma that's starting to develop, but maybe the message isn't clear to me. Maybe I'm not sure what I'm going to communicate, because I hadn't sat to create a coherent, cogent message to the world. And so you may have this amazing vision, but you don't know how to communicate it. That will be a big roadblock. It will be a barrier, an impediment to you doing the good work that you need to do in the world. So let's go to the next one. Commitment. Commitment to expansion, and commitment to the path. And we're talking here about the kind of commitment that makes you wake up in the morning and you get to work. We're talking about the kind of commitment here that makes you do what is required even when nobody's watching. Because without that commitment, you won't take the steps required to manifest the things that we've just covered in terms of charisma and communication and all of these things. And so there is a praxis of commitment that is relentless. It's ongoing. It's uncompromising. And yes, maybe one day I don't feel great. Yeah, you can rest. Of course, you can rest. That sometimes that is vital in order to have that connection internally. But that need for rest doesn't diminish the kind of commitment that you have, the commitment to expand. And commitment is in scarce supply in the world these days. I think this is like, how do you get excited? Not excited. How do you get committed to life? A lot of the time, some really intense experiences need to happen for that to happen. And I believe that the madness of the world these days are awakening a lot of people to commitment. I certainly see that among men, that there is there is a movement away from worshiping weakness, essentially. Oh, you should be sort of stood back and shut up and be vulnerable and sensitive and not really make too much of a fuss, because it's not your turn to lead now, because you're a man and men have been leading for millennia. This kind of messaging has made a lot of men be really uncommitted, and so women can't find committed men and very frustrated and get even more angry with men for not being committed, even though the whole messaging from feminism is for men to just fucking shut up. And so, of course, there's more to feminism than that, but it's but radical feminism has become a lot about men shutting up. So, so given that I work mainly with men, or only with men currently, this is something that I see. Like, how can you, as a man, as a brother, how can you actually get committed? What kind of fire needs to enter your life for you to wake up and realize, no, actually, you need to make the steps required to change, to be on the path of expansion? Commitment. Super, super, super important. Now, that's four. That's four traits of a strong leader. And I would say that if you have those four, you're already an impressive person, an impressive man, or even a woman. And the thing that is important to note here, this could just as easily be the traits of a psychopath, because there's nothing in here that indicates that you should be telling the truth. There's nothing in here to indicate that you should be a high integrity individual. All we're talking about is having charisma, having a vision, having communication skills. Psychopaths are great at communication most of the time, and commitment to expansion. Oh yeah, I want the world to be mine. I want it to be mine. Psychopaths can be fully embodying these four. And so we need more. We need more traits of a strong leader. So the next one needs to be commitment to truth. Because the psychopath leadership is through lies and manipulations. And there's a lot of that happening now. Like, most of politics is the field, the career path that is most inviting of and rewarding of psychopathy. If you can have charisma and you can lie, you'll be a great politician. I mean, that is politics. Charisma and lies. Basically, that is politics. But that's not leadership. That's not leadership. Leadership requires truth. Because lies is not leadership, it's deception. It's manipulation. It's undermining people's sovereignty, their character, their soul, whatever it might be. So truth is required, and we're talking here about the kind of truth that is uncompromising. So whether it's inconvenient for you due to your ethnic origin, or your religious affiliation, or your belief systems, or your habit, or your family, whatever, none of that matters. None. Doesn't matter who you're married to and their, political or cultural or national affiliations. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter. Truth is inconvenient, which is why you need to be a strong leader in order to be in that. And when you actually start to tell the truth, because you're committed to it from a very, very, very deep place inside of you, then you become dangerous in this world where the lies are so normalized. You become a threat to the systems or establishments that are broken, whatever. So typically, when you start to embody this, there will be attacks. Now the attacks are starting to come, and that's why not everybody goes there. That's why it's so much easier to lie. Number 5, commitment to truth. Oh, I didn't change the thing down there, but commitment to truth. Here we go. I'm going to go to the 6th. In service to God, commitment to God, um, something higher. Doesn't need to be the Christian God. It's there needs to be something higher than you, because leadership is a dangerous game in the sense that it's intrinsically corrupting, because the people who come into your field of leadership, they will project. Some of them will fawn and just completely, oh, you're so amazing, you're so amazing. And some of them, typically, when they've pedestalized you for a long time, they will be like, oh, you are a piece of shit. You are not the savior that I thought that you were. And if I'm really like obsessed with me, like, oh, they're so mean to me. I can be victimized in that place. And if you're a leader who's being victimized, you're a dangerous person. You're a very dangerous person, and you will default to being a tyrant. So this is one of the great gifts of the work of Robin Moore, is this insight that you will be a tyrant by default if you're in a position of leadership and not being dedicated to something higher than yourself. Because leadership, you step into that king archetype place, and that king archetype needs to be living in relationship to the higher to live his dharma. But if there is no higher, the connection to source is severed, it's gone. And now I make my own infantile ego games into God. And that is being a tyrant, as being a tyrant. It does not work out well for anyone in the end. Yeah. So this is the one that I think is the most radical among these seven that I'm going to bring to you today, connected to innocence, or even protecting of innocence. The principle embodied in this is something that has emerged gradually throughout my work over more than a decade. And there's also a passage in the Bible, Matthew 18:3. I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines of, you need to become like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. So that's one of those pithy statements that really stuck out to me in this in the Bible. And there, it's being pointed to in other places too, that there's something so special about innocence. And if you embody the first six, you can become a very impressive person. You can to embody vision, you can embody charisma, communication skills. There would be commitment to expansion, to your path. There would be commitment to truth, and then commitment to the higher, to God. But if you're not simultaneously committed down into innocence, you can easily be a zealot. You can be somebody who just steamrolls people with your truth, and who can just steamroll people's innocence. Because why? Because you're actually out of touch with your own. And I actually have a perfect track record for anticipating the kind of leaders that are going to have their communities collapse, um, based on my intuition that they were not in touch with their innocence. So that is to say that they are uncomfortable with being seen as small or vulnerable or as struggling, and they would rather be impressive. I'm going to close the curtains over here because I see I'm getting really overexposed. Just give me 1 second. I hope that helps a little bit. So so then I'm being exposed in the place where I feel small, which triggers us. That is the trigger. And then it pushes us into a trauma pattern. And if we as leaders don't have our shit together in terms of this, we are going to sooner or later find that the work that we're dedicated to in the world is going to be calibrated, shall we say? Because what tends to happen, and I'm going to do a whole new live stream on this because this is really up in my thinking and in my field. This tendency that we can develop as leaders to use our following as an extended nervous system. And so if there's somebody in our field that is starting to push back, and we're like uncomfortable with what is being exposed, and so we're being triggered, then instead of actually being humbly present with the trigger, we can use the remainder of the field, our followers that still adore us and worship us, and then ignore that person. And then that one person becomes two people, and that two people become three people and four people and five people. Now five people have been utterly decimated and steamrolled because the leader was unavailable to be innocent, like, and so was triggered and acted from a trigger and started to demonize the people that were following them. You see where I'm going with this? This is so important that we need to spend a full live stream on this. Because if leaders don't get their shit together in terms of connecting to innocence, dedicating to innocence, protecting innocence, you're going to see one community after another burning down to the ground in scandals, because now those five people are 100 and the adoring followers are just 3 times as many and not 100 times as many. There's a reason why we're being so cruel to children in this world. It's because we are so out of touch with innocence. We're mandating them to do all kinds of shit with their bodies that's dangerous for them. We're mandating them to not be able to see each other, connect with each other, to be completely psychologically damaged in the most formative years of their life. We directly cause a reduction in their IQ because we're damaging the developmental process. This is just some of the things that we've done over just the past few years. And now you're seeing pedophilia and all kinds of human trafficking being exposed all over the place. Balenciaga ad was gross. It was grossly abusive of children. So why do we do this? It's because we have traumatized psychopaths that are running the world and who are completely distanced from their innocence. And so instead of actually being in a humble relationship with that pure place inside, they attack it in others. They attack it in others because then they don't have to fully feel it in themselves. It is gross. Which is why the seventh may be the most important of them all. It may be the most important of them all. And this is the teaching of Robert Moore's archetypal work. I have distanced myself a little bit from that work lately, but it's so beautiful because it shows, just like in the myths, that the divine child, which is the innocence, it's the child that is born into the world and is so full of wonder and is so delightfully sensitive and tender, so pure that we just look into those eyes and we see the cosmos, because there is no conditioning in there yet. No, sure, they are born as fully formed personalities, don't get me wrong, but they're not conditioned by the world per se yet. The work we have to do in the world now in order to to get this mess back on track includes all 7 of these, but I think most vitally it includes protecting kids and our own inner children, and to connect with that part, because the human population now, humans are so traumatized, and seeing as trauma can be defined as being disconnected from innocence. It's the place where your innocence is violated, right? Something bad happens to you, and the kind of rosy, wonderful worldview that you had prior to that, it breaks something inside of you. And growing up and growing old, becoming an adult, is intrinsically about loss of innocence. It is in some ways the parable of Adam and Eve in the Garden of eating the apple. You know, you're born into the realization that you are a limited, separate self that needs to struggle through life to make a living. And it's a dog eat dog world out there. This is the work. To be the leader that creates the kind of new earth that I think so many of us are interested in experiencing. This is the work. As men, you men watching, sure enough, all of those other six are desperately important. But if you leave this out, you're going to get taken down. And you're not going to enjoy the ride so much because you're going to be triggered all over the place. And you're going to be a weak, sorry excuse of a man if you watch children be abused and you don't say anything because it's politically incorrect. Don't be weak. Like, really, don't be weak, and protect innocence. And then you'll be really a strong leader. I think this is what I wanted to share today. I'm just going to read this one comment that's here. Appreciate this very much. You have to put a lot of thought into this. I feel like number 5 is the weakling among the 7. Uh, yeah. Well, I don't think commitment to truth is a weak link. I think it's absolutely essential. But of course, the question is, how do we know it is truth? That's really where we're at as a species now, is that we're arguing over what is truth. And you're watching the elites be dedicated to creating a kind of a meta truth, or a kind of hyper reality, a simulation where your own direct perception of what is going on is put into question, because you're being given such a powerful transmission of a mental truth, a distortion of what you know to be true through your perceptions and through your intuition. And so you're being bombarded by this mental truth that creates a simulation or hyper reality, a meta reality, a metaverse. So this is really a challenge right now when that's happening. I believe deliberately. I think this is just a perfect way to control humanity, to make them buy into a virtual reality that has nothing to do with actual reality. So it's certainly a big conversation to have there around truth. So yeah, all of this can be discussed, but I hope this was helpful. And do comment under the YouTube video, or the Facebook video is being streamed to both platforms at the same time. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I hope this was helpful. And I will be returning back with more reflections on this number 7 later. So that we as leaders, and maybe you just want to be a leader, you feel like leadership is calling you, you know to be with this in your leadership, and to not steamroll it or to violate it in yourself or others. So thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. Wow, we have just wonderful sunshine here today. We've had some lovely days here in rural Sweden over the last several days, so makes me happy. Be well. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.